Wait, ensure to subscribe, like, and comment on this story. Thank you. The community center smelled faintly of old crayons and watered-down disinfectant, a blend of innocence and survival. Scuffed floors told stories of generations of scraped knees and runaway soccer balls. It wasn't glamorous, but to Jake Bennett, it was home on Tuesday afternoons. He sat at the corner of a sticky folding table, sleeves rolled up, hands calloused from work that didn't pay enough. His daughter, Rosie, was painting with the fierce concentration only a 6-year-old could summon, tongue poking from the side of her mouth, eyebrows furrowed as she tried to tame the chaos of her imagination with a brush. Jake smiled, his gaze softening. She was the only color in his world these days. "That's my girl," he muttered, mostly to himself. "Paint like you mean it." Across the room, the door creaked open and the air shifted. She didn't belong there. Anyone with eyes could see that. Madison Rhodes stepped into the community center like she was walking into a museum exhibit. Observant, intrigued, but ultimately detached. Her heels clicked against the tile, an elegant staccato that turned heads. Hair pinned perfectly, lips a deliberate shade of command red. She radiated power like perfume. The kind of woman who didn't wait in lines. The kind of woman who hadn't waited for anything in years. Jake noticed her instantly, not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she looked like a threat to everything he'd built, or maybe just a reminder of everything he hadn't. Rosie squealed, holding up her artwork. "Daddy, look! I made a unicorn with on fire wings." Jake leaned closer, feigning awe. "A fire-breathing unicorn? That's revolutionary. We'll be rich." Madison smiled faintly at the exchange. It was the first genuine thing she'd seen all day. She stepped closer without thinking, drawn to the child's laughter like a moth to warmth. Her gaze softened as it landed on Rosie, but it lingered too long. Long enough that Jake straightened. In his seat, "Can I help you?" he asked, voice calm but tight. Madison blinked, caught. "She just reminded me of someone." "Yeah?" Jake's tone hardened. "Well, she's not a charity case, so if this is your good deed for the day, maybe try the next table." Her brows lifted. "Is that what you think this is?" Jake didn't answer. He didn't need to. His jaw was already doing the talking. "It's not pity," Madison said quietly, then after a beat added, "It's Dior." Rosie giggled. "You sound like a queen. Are you a real one?" Something cracked in Madison's carefully assembled expression. She crouched beside the girl. "Only in boardrooms, sweetheart." "Will you come back next week?" Rosie asked, innocently. Madison glanced toward her assistant, who was tapping her watch with all the subtlety of a brick wall. "Save me a painting," Madison said. "And maybe I will." Jake watched her leave. Every part of him wanted to dislike her. The heels, the attitude, the assumption that she could just walk in and... what? Feel something? But something about the look she gave Rosie. It wasn't fake, and that made him nervous. Out in the parking lot, as he buckled Rosie into their truck, Jake caught sight of Madison again. She was sliding into a sleek, black car, windows so tinted they could hide entire secrets. Their eyes met for the briefest moment. It wasn't attraction, not yet. It was curiosity and something else. Recognition, warning. Rosie looked up from her seat, eyes wide and sleepy. "Daddy, do people ever come back? Like, really come back?" Jake didn't answer right away. He watched the taillights disappear into the dusk, swallowed by the city. "Only the ones who mean it," he finally said. Far across town, Madison stood by her penthouse window, high above the blinking city. Her reflection looked back at her, like a stranger. In her hand, her phone buzzed. A message from her lawyer lit the screen. "We need to talk." "It's about Jake Bennett and the girl." Madison's blood ran cold. She didn't know which shocked her more, that name or the fact that it hadn't been buried. Not yet. Madison Rhodes didn't sleep that night. She paced her penthouse like it were a cage. Barefoot now, the marble floors cold against her skin. The view outside was a glittering sprawl of wealth and power, her kingdom. But tonight, it felt fragile, hollow. The message still burned on her phone screen. It's about Jake Bennett and the girl. 12 years. 12 years since that name had been scrubbed from her life, her files, her conscience. A name she had buried behind iron walls and ice-cold ambition. But here he was, Jake Bennett, sitting in a community center, holding a little girl who painted unicorns with fire wings. Madison stared at her reflection. Her lip trembled for just a moment before she steadied it with the sheer force of will that had built her empire. She picked up the phone. "Get me everything, now." The man on the other end didn't need clarification. Across the city, Jake stood in the kitchen of his tiny apartment, washing dishes under a dripping faucet, while Rosie snored softly in the next room. She was all he had. And lately, even that felt like it was hanging by a thread. He couldn't shake the image of that woman, Madison Rhodes, kneeling next to Rosie like she belonged there. It was more than the way she'd looked at his daughter. It was the way her expression changed, not out of pity, not even warmth, but fear, like she knew something. Jake dried his hands and opened a drawer. Inside, a worn manila envelope. No label. Just old court papers, sealed letters he never opened, and a faded photo of a younger version of himself, next to a woman in a sundress. Madison. He ran his thumb across the picture, anger stirring beneath his ribs like a storm that never settled. Why now? Why was she back? The next morning, Madison was already in her office by 6 a.m., the city still waking up beneath her. Her assistant placed a folder on the desk, no words spoken, just a look exchanged. Inside, Jake's file, employment history, financial records, custody battle notes, school transcripts for Rosie Bennett, and at the very bottom, a birth certificate. Madison's fingers froze. Rosie's birth certificate. Father, Jake Bennett. Mother, unknown. She felt the breath leave. Her body like a slap. A part of her had always wondered. She'd been told not to ask, paid not to think. She had signed things, pushed papers across desks, let lawyers do what they were paid to do, because she thought that was love, or protection, or both. But now she wasn't sure anymore. The door opened sharply. Her legal advisor stepped, in expression taut. "We have a problem." Madison didn't look up. "I already know." "No, this is something else. Jake's ex, Rosie's biological mother, she's filed for visitation rights again. Her case is gaining traction. And if it moves forward..." Madison finally looked up. She could take Rosie. The silence said enough. She stood slowly. "She can't. You're not part of this case, Madison. I am now." Later that day, Jake was hauling boxes in the back of a delivery truck when his phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. He ignored it. Again it buzzed. Voicemail. He checked it, already irritated, until he heard the voice on the other end. "Jake, it's Madison. We need to talk. It's about Rosie, and it can't wait." He nearly dropped the phone. Madison Rhodes hadn't spoken his name in over a decade, and now she was calling about his daughter. He looked back at the truck, the boxes still waiting. He had no idea what was coming. Later that evening, Jake and Rosie sat on their worn couch, cartoons flickering in the background. He watched her, completely unaware, wrapped in a blanket, giggling at flying cats and rainbow aliens, his world. And then came the knock. 3 sharp raps on the door. Jake stood slowly, tension climbing his spine. He opened it halfway, and there she was, Madison Rhodes. No bodyguards, no heels, just jeans, a blazer, and eyes that looked like they hadn't closed all night. "I wasn't sure you'd answer," she said. Jake stared at her, jaw tight. "What do you want?" Madison's voice lowered. "I want to help you keep her." Jake didn't move from the doorway. Madison stood still, composed but unreadable. That was always her gift, appearing perfectly put together even while the world around her cracked. "I want to help you keep her," she'd said. Jake's hands clenched the doorframe. "Why would you help me now?" "Because the woman filing for custody isn't doing it alone anymore. She has backing, resources, people who want to make this a public mess. And you—" She hesitated, eyeing his threadbare couch and the broken screen door. "Don't!" Jake narrowed his eyes. "You think I don't know that?" Madison stepped forward, her voice quiet but firm. "I'm not here to insult you. I'm here because I can help. I can make this go away before it even becomes a fight," Jake scoffed. "What's the catch?" She didn't blink. "You work for me." He stared at her. "Excuse me? You come to my office tomorrow. I'll have you on payroll. Full-time, consultant title. Enough to shut down the court's concerns about income or stability. You'll get a lawyer on my dime, and if anyone asks, I've known you for years, I trust you. End of story." Jake took a long, stunned breath, then asked the question that had burned since the moment she walked back into his life. "Why are you doing this, Madison? What aren't you telling me?" She hesitated, just long enough to confirm his instincts. "We're right, because someone dug up our past," she finally said. "And if this goes to court, if they connect certain names and timelines, they'll ask questions I don't want to answer." Jake shook his head slowly. "So this isn't about Rosie?" Madison looked past him, into the apartment where Rosie's giggles echoed from the hallway. "It is now." The next morning, Jake stood in the lobby of Rhodes' global headquarters, an alien world of glass, steel, and silence. Men in suits walked with purpose. Women in pencil skirts spoke in code. Jake felt like a mechanic lost inside a luxury dealership. Then, the elevator doors opened, and there she was again. Madison, dressed in black, lips painted red like armor. "This way," she said without looking at him. She led him to a private office that overlooked the city like a throne room. On the desk, a contract. Jake looked it over. "You're seriously offering me 6 figures to be your consultant?" She met his gaze. "You're not actually going to do any work. It's just paper." "And what do I tell people?" "You're a logistics advisor. Keep it vague. No one cares, as long as the courts believe it." He studied her. "You've done this before." She didn't answer. By the end of the day, Jake had signed the contract. A suit was delivered to his apartment, tailored, expensive. His phone rang with the contact information of a legal team already briefed on his case. Rosie came home to find a new school application on the table, one where the tuition made Jake's stomach twist. "Dad, are we rich now?" she asked, only half joking. Jake smiled tightly. "Not rich, just lucky." But luck had nothing to do with it. That night, as Rosie slept peacefully, Jake stared at the city skyline from his window, Madison's voice replaying. In his head, someone dug up our past. He opened his laptop and searched the name of the woman who'd filed for visitation, Rosie's biological mother, Clara Hayes. There was barely anything online, until Jake clicked a link buried deep in a parenting forum. It wasn't about custody. It wasn't about visitation. It was an exposé. The title made his blood run cold. "The Child They Paid Me to Forget." A mother's story. He scrolled quickly. Photos, allegations, documents. And then he saw it. A photograph of Madison Rhodes holding a newborn. The same newborn he held the night she disappeared. Jake sat frozen in his small apartment, the glow from the laptop screen casting sharp shadows on his face. The photo was unmistakable. Madison Rhodes, holding a fragile newborn swaddled in white. The baby's eyes were closed, the same tiny fingers curled just like Rosie's. His heart hammered as he scrolled through the exposé. It told a story of secrets kept under lock and key, a story whispered only in the darkest corners of the city, a secret adoption, a sudden disappearance, and a mother who had fought to reclaim her child, only to vanish herself. Jake's mind raced. Was Rosie more connected to Madison than he ever imagined? The doorbell shattered his thoughts. He jumped up, heart still pounding, and opened the door to find Madison standing there, her face unreadable. "I see you found the article," she said quietly. "How long have you known?" Jake demanded. She stepped inside, closing the door gently behind her. "Longer than I care to admit. It's why I came back, because there are things about Rosie's past, and mine, that need protection." Jake's jaw tightened. Protection from who? Madison looked down at her hands, the steel in her voice softening just a fraction. People who want to use Rosie as leverage. People who think if they expose the truth, they can control us both. Jake paced the room, then stopped, eyes locked on hers. "Then what now? What do we do?" "We fight," she said, "but not the way you think." She pulled out an envelope and handed it to him. "This is everything I have on Clara Hayes. It's the only way we can stop her and anyone else trying to tear Rosie away." Jake hesitated, then opened the envelope. Inside were photos, documents, and an old letter with a barely legible signature. "This is our weapon," Madison said, "but it's also a warning." Jake looked up, confused. "Because," she said softly, "someone's already watching you." That night, Jake's phone buzzed. A message appeared from an unknown number. "Stop digging or you'll regret it. Rosie isn't safe if you keep going." Jake stared at the screen, the weight of the threat pressing down on him. He knew one thing for certain: walking away wasn't an option anymore. The night air was thick with tension as Jake and Madison parked, their car a few blocks from Clara Hayes' sprawling estate. Both knew this was more than just a meeting. It was a reckoning. Jake gripped the envelope tightly, his knuckles white. Madison's steady presence beside him was the only thing keeping his nerves in check. "We have to be careful," Madison whispered. "Clara isn't just dangerous, she's ruthless." They approached the front door, the grand facade of the house looming ominously under the streetlights. Madison pressed the doorbell and the sound echoed through the silent night. Moments later, the door swung open, revealing Clara Hayes, her icy eyes locking onto them with a smile that didn't reach her face. "Well, well," Clara purred. "If it isn't the prodigal mother and the lost father, what brings you to my doorstep at this hour?" Jake stepped forward, voice steady despite the storm inside him. "We know the truth, Clara, and we're not backing down." Clara laughed, a cold, sharp sound that cut through the tension. "Do you really think you have the upper hand? You have no idea the forces you're meddling with." From behind her, two men emerged from the shadows, silent, imposing. Madison's eyes narrowed. "You're not just a ghost from the past, you're a threat." Clara's smile faded. "Threat? No, my dear, I'm a guardian, and I will do whatever it takes to keep Rosie exactly where she belongs." Suddenly, the lights inside the house flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Chaos erupted, a struggle, muffled voices, a sharp crash. Jake's heart pounded as he fumbled for his phone to light the way. When the lights flickered back, Aunt Clara was gone. The two men stood motionless, blocking the exit. "Looking for this," one of them sneered, holding up the envelope. Jake lunged forward, but a heavy hand slammed into his shoulder, sending him sprawling. Madison's voice was fierce. "Let him go!" The men hesitated, then backed away slowly. "We'll meet again," Clara's voice echoed from somewhere deeper in the house, cold and full of promise. Jake struggled to his feet, breath ragged, eyes burning with determination. "We're not done," he said. Madison nodded. "This fight is only beginning." Outside, the shadowy figure from earlier melted into the night, a silent witness to the war that was just unfolding. Epilogue: the first light of dawn spilled gently over the city skyline, casting a warm glow through the bedroom window. Rosie Parker sat on the windowsill, her small hands pressed against the glass, watching the world wake up. Her smile was shy but genuine, something she hadn't worn so freely in a long time. Down the hall, Jake leaned against the doorframe, watching his daughter with a heart full of relief and hope. The battle had been fierce, the scars still raw, but for the first time in years, they felt a fragile peace. Madison entered quietly, a soft smile on her lips as she joined them. "She's doing better," she said, voice gentle. "You're doing better," Jake nodded. "We still have a long road ahead, but this feels like a real beginning." Madison stepped closer. "Whatever comes next, you're not alone." Outside, the city buzzed with life, a world full of challenges and surprises. But in this quiet moment, inside this small family, the future was unwritten and full of promise. Rosie turned, looking up at Jake and Madison. "Can we go to the park today?" she asked. Jake's smile was steady, warm. "Yes, sweetheart. Today, we start living." As they gathered around Rosie, a new chapter began. One built not on fear or shadows, but on love, resilience, and hope. And somewhere, far away, a figure watched from the distance, a faint smile playing on their lips. The story wasn't over. Not yet. Wait! Ensure to subscribe, like, and comment on this story. Thank you.